A very good morning. It's such a pleasure to be here with so many of you today here in Chicago. Let me add my welcome as well. You can see from the slide that my name is David Smith. I am ATPCO's Director of Distributing the Offer. So we have our panel ready backstage, but I thought I'd do something a little different just to warm us up for this panel and introduce myself in terms of my why for the industry, thinking that might be something that resonates with so many airline professionals in the room, airline business professionals. So the first of my why is a deep family connection to aviation. My dad, can anyone recognize this? My dad loved airplanes, anything that would fly. He had books full of tail numbers. Many of the time I would spend afternoons at the Queen's Building at Heathrow with him. So deep family connection. Side note, I got my first job in the industry because my auntie was head of personnel at British Airways Revenue Accounting. So thanks, Liz, for that. That seemed to work out pretty well 31 years on. The second is I'm an economist at heart, and I love to follow the money and the economics of our business. I find it fascinating. You'll hear a lot about interoperability during the next 3 days as well. And just, it's such an interesting business to be in. And again, the economics of it really interests me. The third and last and most important piece, and refers to just the fact that we're all here together, is I passionately believe in the power of people getting together, that we absolutely are better together to address these difficult problems across the supply chain, the life cycle of the offer and the order, from create to distribute, to present, to post, service and settle. Again, you'll hear lots more of that throughout these 3 days. So that's me. Love to talk to you over the next 3 days to connect as we're networking. Please do think of your why as well, and I'm sure we'll have a conversation. So without further ado, I want to introduce some friends and colleagues. They've been long-time friends of mine as well. Isn't this business that way? And we're going to talk about the state of airline retailing. So I'd like to welcome onto the stage. Please wait for their names and then give them a big hand. So Nikki from Flight Centre, George from Hawaiian Airlines, Mitsue from All Nippon Airways, and finally Daniel from Travel in Motion. Please give them a big hand as they join us. And Daniel, I'm delighted to invite you to talk to us for 10 minutes now about Travel in Motion's view on the state of airline retailing. So
perfect.
Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dave. Morning, everybody. It's great to be here first thing and start talking about a topic that we're really passionate about and is our daily bread and butter. Just have to press to get the first slide up. Yep, there we go. We're going to talk about the state of the industry today of offers and orders and where it's going from here over the next couple of years. It's always a little bit difficult to kind of look 3, 4, 5 years into the future, but nonetheless, we'll give it a try. So what you see on the screen is a baobab tree. Many who've been to Africa have seen these. And I like the analogy to offers and orders in this whole modern airline retailing story, because it takes about 20 years for a baobab tree to bloom. If you think when we actually started with topics around NDC and offer and order and one order back in 2011, 2012, well, we're kind of getting there, aren't we, for that 20 years. But once they do mature, they offer magnificent fruit, which elephants get drunk off of, but that's a different story. We wrote a white paper on this not too long ago where we did try to look into that future, and I'd like to share some of our findings from that white paper. So where are we today? First of all, there's an industry consortium that IATA put together with quite a few airlines of different shapes and sizes from all different regions in the world, and some of them are aligned, some of them are non-aligned, so we do have a lot of flavors in there. There's also a number of different topics that IATA is addressing with those working groups and going through. And for those who maybe aren't as embedded into some of this, there's a lot of material to be downloaded that you can read that's been created by these airlines for that. And a lot of good reading. With a lot of it will apply to an extent, but of course it's always industry generic. And that's some of the problem, that if you take the business case that's there's some great ideas, great things to think about, but it never will apply to you and your airline exactly. You have to modify it for your own case. At the same time, there's a lot of activity going on across the 4 main domains: offer, order, deliver, and settle. And there's different levels of maturity across those. And that's one of the challenges, that not everything is moving at the same pace. It basically means that in the offer world, we're much more mature with the technology, with the APIs, even with the business process re-engineering and rethinking at the airlines than we are in settle and deliver, for example. And that's one of the things that we notice when we go and do some the strategy work and business process re-engineering with the airlines, is that, well, we haven't really put a lot of thought around the new service delivery. We know it's going to come, but what's actually going to happen, we don't know yet. And so that's a lot of the work is still outstanding in some of those areas. And finally, there have been announcements in the recent past. We know that some of the airlines have already selected Amadeus's product. Some airlines have already selected Saber's product, and we've had a first airline publicly say, you know what, we're actually going to combine something to somewhat hopefully prove that point around modularity. There's other airlines that are doing a lot of things. We've talked or heard from many airlines on stage in the past. We heard from Turkish Airlines saying, well, we're going to build everything ourselves, more or less. They talked about that last fall. We heard from ANA about a year ago where they talked about different POCs that they're doing. So there's just different ways to move forward. Now, if we just look at kind of what's going to happen this year in 2025, as we're still somewhat early in the year, if we look at the airlines, we almost say we've got three types, the common, of course, the leaders, the fast followers, and the observers. But moving away from that, what we see is that a lot of mid-sized to large airlines are starting to do something. They're getting a bit nervous if they haven't done anything at all. It doesn't mean that they start with a transformation, but it starts to mean that, well, let's get a small team together and start looking at what should we be doing and what could we be doing. The airlines that have already set their sights on this are working through business cases, business process re-engineering, and even starting to flirt a little bit with the different vendor communities out there, saying, show me what you got. And then, of course, there's a series of airlines that have already selected vendors, so not just the ones that I talked about before, but other airlines who kind of know where they're going, and they're really starting to work on what are the requirements for this future state, working on transition roadmaps. How do we get certain things, for example, off of PSS? How do we make sure we're in sync and we can still talk to the old world? At an industry level, we've got groups working on identifying the missing pieces of the puzzle. So what don't we have well defined yet? There are quite a few areas that are still kind of open. Some of them have been for a while. We're still not allowed to, or we still have to file fares in some countries, which takes away a little bit of the flexibility, for example, in dynamic and continuous pricing. Interlining with offers and orders, the whole service delivery. Are we getting rid of check-in and code share, or are we not getting rid of those things? So the industry groups, like the consortium, are working through those. And finally, on the vendor side, vendors are continuing to present all of their solutions to the market. There's a lot of good products and good ideas out there. And a lot of the vendors are starting to come together to talk about how can we do this better together, building more of groups of consortium that come and say, look, we've got these group of products, we can offer these different modules together. And finally, a lot of the vendors are running around from airline to airline and showing, look, this is the best solution that you can have. And there's so many best solutions out there, the airlines don't know which ones to pick. If we look at 2026 to 2028 timeframe, we think, and this is just our assumption, that there will be a lot of focus on enhancing the order. So we saw before on the maturity chart, the offer is quite advanced in a lot of cases. The technologies are being exploited with AI and those kind of things, but the order is still a little bit shy. So there will be some work to enhance that order and to really work on those business processes around the order. So how do we actually get rid of tickets and PNRs? And what does that mean to the downline processes and systems? A lot of work will happen around that. And then what we're seeing more and more is airlines are putting the customer experience aspect to front and center of this transformation. They're saying this is the opportunity where we can start making things better that we've missed or haven't been able to do for many years because we are applying that retail mindset to this. It was actually interesting. Turkish Airlines did talk about when they presented kind of their vision at a recent conference that they have 30, 40 people in their core team, and of those, more than half are coming from fintech startups, retailers, telcos, because they said they need to learn from what others have done well. There will be some focus on service delivery and order-based accounting. And like we saw in the first chart, is that those are the areas that are a little bit further behind. And that's good. They do need quite a bit of work. And it's a bit of a challenge because on one hand, they're dependent on that order. But on the other hand, we also caution airlines very much not to think about these things too late. We're seeing more and more that actually this, especially the service-based accounting or the order-based accounting is going to be unlocking a lot of value in the order. And if we leave that to the end, we're not going to be able to transform as much of the things that we want to transform. So again, just focus on not forgetting any of the key and crucial components. And finally, if we really try to look out beyond 2028 into 29 to 2030, and 2030 is IATA's aspirational goal of being on offers and orders. Now, it doesn't mean everybody's 100% there, but it does mean that a number of airlines are significantly running transactions through offer order type of platforms. There are probably going to be three kind of main areas. One is around, for those that are already there or more or less there, it's around solidification. Let's make this stuff work and really make it solid because there's so much opportunity to build on this. The second one we like to refer to as disengagement. So how do we start now really shutting down the PSS? Because there's still a lot of dependencies. Some airlines might do a hard cut before that, but I think for a lot of airlines, it's going to be crucial to start figuring out, okay, now I've built up my offer, my order capability. I can already do some new service delivery. I'm accounting a lot of things through the new financial management system, but I still have this PSS. And how do I start disengaging from that carefully without interrupting my daily operations and my airport topics and those kind of things? And then finally, we're going to have those third wave movers. So those airlines that have been kind of standing back and saying, you guys go ahead and, get your fingers bloody and, really move into this. We don't want to do that. They will start because also the vendors will be much more ready. They'll have products that are ready to be deployed, ready, running in production, running at scale. And so this will look much more like a potentially typical PSS migration, but PSS to offer order because the whole industry will have garnered a lot of experience from that. So that was just a very brief outline. I could talk about this for a day, but I only was given 10 minutes. So I think that's where we're headed. Happy to discuss more on the panel.
Thank you, Daniel, for that. Awesome. A great setup, and it is a journey. And that's I think that's a great setup for people that we have on stage and your views there. So as we dive into the discussion, I did think it would be useful to offer up this visual. And it's really how we describe airline retailing from an economic view, an IATA view, and ATPCO view. And we know that those terms aren't holistic to describe the entire transformation that we have, but they're in common use today. So I think it's a good foundation. I'll ask Daniel in a second, just as a follow-up to his presentation on a more holistic view. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing. That's the key message here, that whether we're describing it as pre-sale, the sale, post-sale, whether it's offer, order, service, deliver, or whether it's create, distribute, present, post, service, and settle, they're describing the same thing. And I think the key to that journey and making that together is that we all understand the same thing there. And it's one life cycle that we're addressing together. So, Daniel, I did just want to throw it to you quickly, just that Travel in Motion has a view on the digital retail environment, which you didn't have in the slide deck, but it expands on that. So can you talk to me just briefly about the domains within it and share with the audience?
Yeah, I did put up that chart around offer, order, settle, and deliver. We look at it a little bit more refined than that because we don't think that actually covers all of the areas. And for us, there's different components to it. So there's definitely a channel component because we keep seeing we knock up against channel and need to resolve how are we going to get this content to the channel and how are we going to get the channels talking to us. So that's a key element in our view of the DRE. Then we have customer actually as the first one after channel, because if we forget the customer and the interactions, then it's kind of a lost cause, everything behind it. So that's really how we start thinking channel and customer. And then we take it apart into, and I guess ATPCO will like this view as well, the product. So product for us is a separate pillar. It's not part of offer. Just because product, we feel it's used across the whole journey, the whole life cycle. It's not just sitting at offer creation at one point. So we've extracted product out of offer. Then we have the whole offer domain, the order domain, and then as well the service delivery, and on the financial domain, and underlying or underpinning all of that, going back to what Alex was talking about earlier, is data. So we do actually have a whole series of topics going data across all of those domains because it's all about data collection, utilizing it, and seeing how can we best then put that back into action, which each of those different areas across our whole domain view.
Lovely, thank you. And I think those frameworks are incredibly useful. I'm very passionate about use of simple language and reusing that language so we understand where we're going together. I do want to move on to the offer domain, specifically distribution. And I think my feeling is, as an industry, we've moved on from NDC as an end goal outcome, but there is a wide understanding that it's a means to an end. So in other words, contextual dynamic offers can't be optimized if the airline isn't creating the offer. But that said, NDC is a really important pillar. That's new distribution capability, for those that didn't know the acronym, to move forward on that journey if an airline isn't there yet. So our view is that NDC has to scale. We have to work together to remove barriers across the offer order life cycle, and that's a really vital transformational pillar. But George, I'd like to throw it to you. I know that for yourself and Hawaiian Airlines, you've taken such a leading role in distribution and NDC, and quite public about it as well. But what's your experience just in terms of maturity of distribution?
I think in the last 12 to 18 months, we've seen a lot of airlines come into a mature space. It's taken us a long time, and I think we've been very open with some of the struggles we've had. I think a lot of our partners have been very open and shared, and I think that's been key to actually getting us to this point. As we start to work on the maturity aspect, there's so many fine details. I think that's something where we're starting. It used to be, we have a couple hundred bookings a day. The system can go up, it can be down. We can make some changes on the fly. I think now we're much more defined on operational processes and delivering a great guest experience and a great partner experience. And that's something we haven't had to do in distribution. That's really what our third-party partners have taken care of. We did a lot of contracting, and we weren't really at the front lines of running a kind of an enterprise high availability software system. So that is a big change for us as we start getting what's the quality of our distribution help desk, and what level of service are the agents delivering? How good are our release notes? How well are we communicating changes, and how do we deal when we do have system issues? Because system issues are inevitable; they will happen. And how do we recover from them? How do we talk to our partners about them? I think that's a lot of where we spend a lot of the last year focusing on. It's less now about, do we have the functionality to do this in the API? Yes or no. I think we've gotten to that space where we got 99% of that functionality sorted out and delivered, and the customers and the partners who are using it are happy. It's really now, how do we deliver that, that same great guest experience we strive for on board to our third-party partners.
Kieran, I think that's a great insight. That's sort of leveling up as airlines have to holistically deal with it now, and that's lovely. So actually, I'll throw the same question to you, Nikki, just from sort of the other side and the sharp end of that retailing side of things.
So I think that I'd kind of agree with what George has said. I think the last sort of 12 months has seen a lot of improvement not just from a technical delivery perspective, but also from a collaboration perspective. Historically, some of the areas that had been left out were how are things going to look in sort of an online booking tool type scenario and things like that. And that has now really transformed. So I think that we're sort of getting to, I guess, the nitty gritty of what needs to happen. And focusing on the customer experience is really important. And I think that that's the bit that is where the airlines collaborating really helps, because if you're delivering something for your own .com, you get to control what it looks like, but you're also normally only selling your own product. For anyone who's buying through a third-party tool, making sure that you understand what the customer experience is going to be when they're comparing your competitors' products side by side and making sure the customer can understand it. And I think this is where something like the product catalog, and actually I like Daniel's idea of kind of separating it out, because that product and how you define that and explain it to the traveler and the customer kind of is essential to actually deliver the rest of the chain, really.
Thank you for that. And it's actually it's good to hear you saying that the transformation has been happening as well. So some green shoots there, but to Daniel's message as well, that there's some way to go there. So moving again to Daniel's presentation, I think that grounded us well, but it's clear after a long period of time in the concept phase that we've had for offers and orders, we're firmly into design. I think that reflects your comments as well, Nikki and George, that it's moving forward. Daniel mentions Traveler Motion mentioned their paper, offer and order management systems from Amadeus, from Sabre, modular approach by Riyadh Air using Sabre and Flyer. More recently, Air France KLM announcing Amadeus Nevio for orders, and more, which is nice to see that proliferating now. But from our perspective, there 450 airlines in the ecosystem, and we're seeing that transitional an incremental approach by airlines moving forward. So, Daniel, you've talked about the large amount of work on the offer side, the shift in focus to benefits of orders, and the lion's share of effort now needed in settlement and delivery. Mitsue, I'd like to throw this question to you. I know that you're undertaking a prototype right now. Daniel mentioned that ANA have been working on this for a while as well. But can you give us some insights to that sort of offer and order interplay?
Yes, we think we have started a small step in the offer and the transformation journey after doing NDC implementations in the past few years. And we think NDC is the essential step to move forward to the offer and order transformation. But actually, we hear a lot of words of offer and order transformation, but we really don't know exactly what it is and what it means for us. So ANA has decided to organize a small project team to learn more in detail on the offer and order transformations, to do some POCs with the existing partners. And it is quite interesting activities. We organize this, don't make a big group. We need some experts in the specialized areas like distribution, IT, digital, revenue accounting, CX strategy. And so those members get together to talk about what we want to achieve to get rid of the old world to the new world and the permanent world. So we studied some POC, for example, offer segmentation. Segmentation, we could do a bit in the current world with filing. However, it is not perfect. So we decided to do some POC for segmentation to learn about the benefit, how the customer will reflect to the segmentation offers. Also, if to understand if this good segmentation makes good revenue, or how we can make segments for the customers. For example, we did a lot of exercise to think about personas. For example, I am spoiled me because I am in the good age, like traveling, shopping, and eating. So we categorize those people and think about how we can identify the benefit for each customer's type. And also we did another POC for order accounting. It's new to us. We work with our current revenue accounting partner, LSY Cyrex, to do some new API message to send the orders into the settlement. And it's to learn about how we change our current business process in the settlement side. Sometimes we put settlement later, but for offer and order transformation, we thought it is quite important to involve settlement part from the beginning to think about how we can equally to give the benefits for each processes. So that's what we just studied.
Thank you. It's got great insight into it's a business process transformation, not just a technical transformation, but also I wanted to lean into that. And I believe, Daniel, it was either in your presentation or the paper, don't leave accounting till last. And as a former revenue accountant, that really resonates with me. And Nikki, I know it's one you're passionate about. Do you want to offer some comments just on the settlement and the order side of things?
Yeah, I think that Daniel's comment is very true. And we've seen from both your paper and other things that have been published that actually when you look at airlines who've sort of started their transition to offers, orders, settle is kind of negligible in terms of the start. And I think that I would love to think that we get to a situation where actually it all just works. But I think we have all collectively learned that it's not until you start to actually dig into what is going to change and how it's going to change and how it's going to impact everyone in the value chain that you actually uncover all these things. And I think that from my perspective, if you think about how settlement works today, it's quite dated. It kind of the idea that you're going to batch things up and send them to somebody every 2 weeks, when you've got now people buying real time online, and there's normally a cooling off period, which is dictated by the government, which is based on the actual time of where you are. The fact that we have to deal with that kind of where customers are transacting, I think that is so different than the world of how settlement works today that we need to start to investigate this more. And I think that the other reason I don't want it to leave it to the end is because industry transformation is expensive. So as we all know, in order for an airline or anyone else to do this, you need to get everyone on board. And one of the key people to get on board is the CFO and that whole finance team. If you leave it to the 11th hour to talk about settlement and suddenly you discover actually the risk associated with the sellers, we don't know as much data as we do today, or we're actually going to get paid 2 weeks later than we do today, that credit risk, the finance team have got enough power to put the complete stoppers on all of the projects that are going. So that's why I really want that. But I'll be honest, I've been a bit disappointed. We've put ourselves out there and offered ourselves to do proof of concept on settlement to quite a lot of people. And a lot of people at first think it's a good idea. And then they go away and have some internal conversations and not ready to do it till 2026 or 2027. And so I think we really need a bit of a push in that direction.
Thank you. It's interesting to hear that the rubber meets the road here, but the order piece is difficult and the settlement piece, but to capture the benefits, we have to get there and that leaning into the CFO as well. Georgia, I just want to see if that's your experience as well, that sort of lean into off creation to start with, but whether you're heavily into the order side of things just yet.
I think what we've tried to focus on is thinking about the payments aspect as well. I think payments often gets forgotten or is a afterthought, and what we're finding more and more is the payments piece and being able to facilitate real-time compliant transactions that meet what the customer wants now. There's so many different wallets out there, so many different types of forms of payment that we didn't use before. Ensuring that we can transact with the guests and then settle is key. So settlement is very, very much key to ensuring that OSD is going to work well. And I think to some of the other points that were made, I think what airlines really do have to think about is the strategy of what do they want. I think a lot of people use NDC and OSD as a verb. We want an OSD. We need OSD. It's like, well, what do you really mean by that? What do you want to do? What products do you want to sell? The strategy is so key, and working to define the strategy before you start this, because I think, just doing OOSD isn't, that's not right. That's not what you should be doing. And I think you'll really get into a mess trying to figure out, well, what is the driver? What are the benefits for this when you try to do that? We've seen lots of airlines try to do NDC and get themselves into a similar place. If you don't have a solid strategy underpinning it, you're going to get lost in the giant technology product that it is.
Yeah, so thanks. Great point there. I'm glad you mentioned payments as well, because we do tend to think of sort of distribution and NDC as maybe the only piece, but the payment strategy, the settlement strategy are super important as well. So just again, back to Daniel's slides on airlines, the industry and vendors moving with the first steps of implementation. I do want to talk about interoperability. It's a word that's going to come up again and again these 3 days. Super important. A big part of what we feel is ATPCO's value in moving 450 airlines onward in the journey. They're all moving at their own individual pace. That interoperability needs to be there. They need to maximize return on investment, have the right strategy, as you mentioned, George, as well. But I think initially there was this view of there's one business model or other, there's legacy or modern, but we're increasingly seeing that evolution, incremental steps that get us there. But I'll throw out to, perhaps Mitsue, I'll throw out to first here. Some of the challenges that you've seen sort of around interoperability and interlining perhaps, or as you move to offers and orders, where those major challenges might be for our audience.
A major challenge is to training and learning, involving the new people into this mindset change, because we love to live with the current world. It's easier, but we also have to make new steps. But it's complicated. This is quite complicated, so it takes much time to make people to learn about it. That is a big challenge. And also, I got some concerns about the pace. All the channels and all the technologies and airlines are working at a different pace. So at some point we have to align everything, but we don't know when. So, and in that means we have to keep to double standards in the meantime as a transition period. And our aim and goal is how we can minimize the period with the collaboration with the industry friends.
Yeah, so minimizing that period, but I really took a lot from your first piece about take the people with you, because we know there's a significant business process shift, but also with the environment that we have, people working for our companies are shifting as well. Thank you. Nikki, you had a point. I'll come to you, Daniel, as well.
So it's a pain point that we've got from interoperability at the moment, where we see with some airlines who are kind of in a transition state. Some of their products are distributed in the legacy way and some of their products are distributed in a new way. And in reality, a lot of our customers want to see both. And going back to a little bit to what Alex was saying around branded fares and product catalogue and things, as an airline, if you're continuing to distribute through both methods, think about how that looks for the customer. Because if you've got cabins and products on board, if you call them something completely different when you distribute them through NDC than you do through traditional channels, it is very, very confusing for the customer and everybody. And that's a real interoperability practicality element here and now. And it's painful.
Thank you. That's great. And Daniel, I know you had a view on this one as well, please.
I was just going to chime in on what Mitsue had said as well on this. So we just did about 8 weeks of business process re-engineering with an airline around interline and intermodal travel, right? And realize that there's two parts of interoperability. Well, one is even within the company to align and make sure, do we actually understand what we're trying to do? And what are all the different points where it's gonna affect the processes that we have? And then we need to take in a rail provider and another airline to see, well, do you even agree? Do we even have alignment on our understanding of what interoperability means and who's going to take which responsibility where? So a lot of it is education and just getting all the people into a room and mapping it out on big walls.
That's great. And actually a nice commercial for where we are here. We have a lot of people in the room and we have some common themes to share. So finally, we just have 5 minutes remaining here, but for companies that might be just starting out on the journey, I did want to get from each of you just sort of a last word, a couple of one-liners of advice that they should take into account to make this journey smoother. And I'll start with Nikki.
So I think, as Daniel said, we've been going at this for 20 years nearly now. God. So use that experience and the knowledge that other people have got, because if you're starting out now, you don't have to start from scratch, because so many people have done quite a lot of the heavy lifting for you. So I think by coming to sessions like this and collaborating with your airline partners and things like that, you will learn a lot from people who've gone through the painful experience. So don't feel that you need to start out alone, I would say.
Great. So learn from experience. Fantastic. Thank you. George.
For me, I go back to strategy. Make sure you know your strategy. Make sure you know what you want in terms of a product offering, in terms of a guest experience. And then don't forget that, the people we work with as airlines, the various third-party vendors, they are our partners, they are our guests. We have to deliver a great guest experience and a great product to them and great end-to-end. And lastly is be a part of the community. I think we need more people participating in the various, boards and forums, because we actually need people to do the hard work of defining everyone looks back and says, well, we need more standards. And so we can talk to, we need more people to define these, but that takes a lot of work. So we need more people actually participating to actually help us define, when we say, well, we need a great product catalog, that takes a lot of people to put that together. So.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. And I think especially around collaboration and be involved. And you'll see ARC and IATA here as well. We consciously as industry organizations work together very closely, but absolutely that level of learning from other people, but those people also bringing to the table. Mitsue, your words of advice for our audience.
Yes, I also echo Joe's comments, but it is quite important to involve different departments, because it's a massive change and biggest change, I think, in the industry. So, and also we need to think about the end-to-end solutions. So we cannot work only on offer side. We have to think about the order and settlement and deliver at the same time, even though they are not perfect yet. And so we need the experts, ideas and opinions to discuss. Even for the offers, we need revenue accounting insights on how they can handle the different offers. So please involve everyone. And also the right number of the people, not to make big. It's messy. So, and also it's good to collaborate in close communication with the vendors. We need to talk to them and we need to listen to them. And also sometimes to channels. We want to understand how the travel agency wants to change their world as well.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it's an interesting one, because it's not so much a new problem, but perhaps a different problem. We've always had these segments of the supply chain, but now with business process re-engineering, it's quite different. So involving those departments need to be in early. Thank you. And Daniel, for you to round us out, please.
Yeah, thank you. I would say just don't take too big a bite of the apple, because you'll choke. You just, take a bite at a time, do a concept first, understand where is the value, where are my challenges specific to my airline, and then do the next step. And we've worked with airlines who have said, hey, this is great conceptually, we're just not ready because A, B, and C. If we do it now, things will go wrong. Let's just wait another year or two. And that's fine as well, right? It doesn't mean you have to go all in, but at least start discovering, do it slowly, and then take a step at a time. And I think that kind of will make it manageable.
Great. Thank you so much. So it just remains for me to say, Daniel, Mitsue, and George and Nikki, it's taken time, effort, and it's great to have your wisdom shared so early in this conference. So I thank you for that. I hope you've all got a good flavor of the state of airline retailing 2025 and beyond as we move into the next part of Elevate. Thank you.